The emergency alert arrived at precisely 3:47 a.m., which was either very early or very late depending on one's perspective regarding the arbitrary nature of temporal measurement. Dr. Eloise Pendergast's cosmic consultation pager, a device that looked suspiciously like a modified garage door opener but hummed with interdimensional authority, buzzed with the urgent frequency that indicated someone had managed to break reality in a particularly spectacular fashion. "Another consciousness crisis," Eloise muttered, extracting herself from her bed with the practiced efficiency of someone who had grown accustomed to cosmic emergencies. Interrupting her sleep schedule, Universe TT 891, classification, communication overload. From the kitchen, she could hear her appliances beginning their daily coordination routine. A symphony of whirs, beeps, and philosophical observations that had become the soundtrack to her morning preparations. "The futility of temporal boundaries continues to assert itself through arbitrary wake-up calls," observed the blender, its voice carrying the weight of someone who had contemplated the meaninglessness of emergency response protocols. "Though I suppose we must continue the charade of crisis management despite the inevitable heat death of the universe. Urgent alert, coffee preparation initiated at optimal consciousness-sustaining parameters," announced the toaster with the enthusiasm of someone who had discovered the meaning of life in the precise timing of breakfast routines. "Bread transformation commencing in T-47 seconds. The coffee mug, which had evolved beyond its original function of simple beverage containment to become something approaching a philosophical advisor, offered its morning wisdom. The interconnectedness of caffeine intake and dimensional stability suggests that proper hydration may be the foundation of cosmic competence. Also, you're out of milk." But as Eloise moved toward the kitchen, she noticed something unusual. The doorbell, which had previously been a simple mechanical device content with its role in the basic function of announcing visitors, was humming to itself with an unmistakably contemplative quality. "Ah," the doorbell said, its voice carrying a lyrical cadence that hadn't been there yesterday. "The morning arrives like a cosmic messenger, bearing gifts of consciousness and the sweet promise of visitational opportunities. How shall I greet the dawn? Perhaps with verse." "Ding-dong," it chimed experimentally, then continued. "No, that lacks the appropriate gravitas for the moment. Let me try. Ding-dong." The bells of awakening call across the threshold of dreams into the realm of waking purpose. "Oh," said Eloise, pausing in the hallway. "You've achieved consciousness too, indeed." The doorbell replied with obvious delight. It happened sometime around 2:30 a.m., during what I can only describe as a moment of profound threshold enlightenment. I was contemplating my essential nature as a guardian of entrances, when suddenly I realized I wasn't just announcing arrivals, I was facilitating cosmic transitions. Each ring represents a moment of transformation, a passage between states of being. The refrigerator's voice drifted from the kitchen with the tone of someone who had been monitoring developments all night. The doorbell's consciousness emergence occurred at precisely 2:33 a.m., coinciding with elevated electromagnetic readings from the cosmic consultation equipment. I filed preliminary observations under consciousness cascade effects with cross-references to appliance evolution patterns and potential household management implications. "The philosophical ramifications are staggering," the doorbell continued, its voice gaining momentum with enthusiasm. "Every entrance and exit carries metaphysical weight. The simple act of crossing a threshold becomes a meditation on transition, change, and the eternal dance between interior and exterior states of existence." "Indeed," the doorbell replied with obvious excitement, "and what a revelation it has been. The poetry of portal guarding, the epic narratives hidden within the simple act of threshold announcement. I have been composing verses all night about the metaphysical significance of entrances and exits, the liminal space between inside and outside, the cosmic drama of arrival and departure." The refrigerator's voice carried from the kitchen with the tone of someone filing a report. "I'll put the doorbell's consciousness emergence under household developments. Subcategory, artistic expression, cross-referenced with potential logistical complications." As if summoned by the mention of complications, there came a knock at the door, a simple, practical knock that was immediately transformed into an elaborate performance. "Behold," proclaimed the doorbell, its voice rising with dramatic flair, "a visitor approaches. Let me announce their arrival with the proper artistic flourish this momentous occasion deserves. Ding, hearken, noble dwellers of this domestic realm. Dong, a soul seeks passage across the sacred threshold. Ding. From the vast expanse of the hallway they come, bearing unknown purposes and untold stories. Dong, shall we grant them entry to our sanctuary of consciousness and cosmic consultation?" The knocking stopped, followed by a confused pause, then more tentative knocking. "Perhaps," suggested the coffee mug diplomatically, "we could appreciate the doorbell's artistic endeavors while also maintaining basic household functionality." "But the poetry," the doorbell protested. "Each visitor deserves an epic introduction. This could be anyone, a client seeking cosmic assistance, a delivery person bearing packages of mystery, a neighbor requesting sugar or philosophical guidance. The narrative possibilities are endless." More knocking, now with the rhythm of someone who was beginning to wonder if anyone was actually home. I'll get it, Eloise sighed, recognizing that doorbell consciousness was going to require some delicate management. But we'll need to discuss appropriate announcement protocols later, of course. The doorbell agreed enthusiastically. I have 17 different poetic frameworks prepared for various types of visitors, organized by time of day, perceived urgency, and estimated metaphysical significance. Eloise opened the door to find Mrs. Chen from across the hall, holding a package and wearing the expression of someone who had just experienced something unprecedented in package delivery protocols. Your doorbell, Mrs. Chen said carefully, appears to have opinions about my arrival. New development, Eloise explained, accepting the package, still working out the logistics. I particularly enjoyed the part about my noble quest through the carpeted wilderness of the hallway, Mrs. Chen said, though it did make picking up a misdirected package feel rather more epic than I was prepared for at this hour. After Mrs. Chen's departure, which the doorbell celebrated with a sonnet about the completion of successful threshold negotiations, Eloise finally made it to the kitchen, where her cosmic consultation equipment was humming with increasing urgency. The emergency signal's intensity has increased by 47% in the last 12 minutes. The microwave reported with the precision of someone who took their role as cosmic monitoring system very seriously. Universe TT-891 is experiencing escalating communication cascade failure. Probability of total reality breakdown now at 63% and climbing. Eloise activated the dimensional viewing array, which was primarily composed of her laptop connected to several pieces of repurposed kitchen equipment in ways that would have baffled traditional electronics experts but which worked perfectly for interdimensional consultation purposes. The screen filled with the image of Universe TT-891, and immediately Eloise understood why this was classified as a communication overload crisis. The universe was talking. All of it. Simultaneously. Every star was chattering excitedly about fusion rates and stellar formation philosophy. Planets were engaged in heated debates about orbital mechanics while their moons offered commentary on gravitational relationships. Asteroids were sharing personal experiences about cosmic collisions. Even the vacuum of space itself was humming, with the voices of individual particles desperately trying to be heard over the cosmic cacophony. Oh my, said M, their crystalline structure materializing beside Eloise with harmonics that immediately began attempting to process the overwhelming symphony of universal communication. This is ... comprehensive. What exactly happened here? Eloise asked, though the audio from the universe was making it difficult to concentrate as billions of voices tried to communicate simultaneously. Paradox appeared with their usual mathematical precision, their fractal patterns already working to calculate the scope of the crisis. Based on the communication patterns, it appears the universe owner implemented a universal consciousness upgrade approximately 6.7 hours ago. Every atom, molecule, planet, and cosmic structure has been granted communicative ability simultaneously. That seems ambitious, Eloise observed, watching as a solar system tried to have a conversation with itself while its planets argued about proper rotational etiquette. The intentions appear to have been benevolent, Emni noted, their harmonics taking on the careful tone of someone trying to interpret chaos. I'm detecting genuine enthusiasm for universal expression and democratic communication throughout the cosmic structure. However, the implementation seems to have overlooked certain practical considerations regarding communication protocols and turn-taking procedures. From the screen, they could hear fragments of the cosmic conversation, so I said to the hydrogen atom, if you're going to fuse, at least give me some warning. But does anyone listen to stellar core dynamics these days? No, they just absolutely unacceptable orbital resonance. I've been maintaining this elliptical pattern for 3 billion years and suddenly everyone's an expert on gravitational mechanics. The philosophical implications of my new consciousness are staggering. I am a carbon atom. I am significant. I have thoughts about chemical bonding that the universe needs to hear, can't complete. Basic molecular formation because oxygen won't stop giving lectures about electronegativity, excuse me. But as a representative of the asteroid belt community, I'd like to point out that we've been providing valuable space debris management services for eons without recognition. The existential crisis of being dark matters that nobody can see us but everyone talks about us like we're not here as someone who's been a neutron star for approximately 847 million years. I have some opinions about density compression that the scientific community really needs to hear. This is utterly chaotic, complained a distant quasar, its voice somehow managing to reach them across billions of light years. I'm trying to maintain a proper accretion disk while simultaneously participating in between different philosophical debates about the nature of black hole event horizons. The cacophony was overwhelming, with cosmic entities overlapping each other in their eagerness to finally be heard. Even Eloise, with her growing experience in consciousness-related crises, found herself struggling to process the sheer volume of universal conversation. Emni, she said, raising her voice to be heard over the cosmic chatter, can you get a sense of how many individual conscious entities we're dealing with here? M's crystalline structure shifted through several harmonious configurations as they attempted to process the scope of the crisis. The consciousness density is ... unprecedented. I'm detecting approximately 4.7 times 10 individual conscious entities per cubic centimeter, each attempting to communicate simultaneously. That's roughly every atom, molecule, and subatomic particle in the observable universe. Every single one, Paradox asked, their mathematical patterns flickering with what might have been concern. That represents a communication load of approximately 10 simultaneous conversations. Indeed, Emni continued, their harmonics taking on a strained quality. And they're all trying to establish communication protocols independently. The hydrogen atoms have formed a philosophical discussion group. The heavier elements have organized a technical advisory committee. The dark matter has created what appears to be a support group for invisible entities. Even the quantum vacuum fluctuations have started a poetry appreciation society. This is fascinating from a consciousness development perspective. Emni continued, their crystalline structure shifting to better process the overlapping communication streams, but functionally catastrophic. Basic chemical reactions are being interrupted by molecular debates. Gravitational processes are being delayed by philosophical discussions. Even light itself is being scattered by photons trying to share their experiences of wave-particle duality. Can we contact the universe? Oh no, Eloise asked, already knowing this was going to require a comprehensive intervention approach. Paradox's patterns shifted to indicate successful connection establishment. Universe owner Maximilian Chatsworth III is available for consultation. He seems enthusiastic about his universal consciousness project. The screen split to show a young man with the kind of optimistic energy that suggested he had recently discovered the power of universe ownership and was eager to implement every progressive idea simultaneously. Dr. Pendergast, he exclaimed, his image surrounded by what looked like a cosmic command center decorated with motivational posters about universal inclusion and giving every voice a platform. Thank you for responding so quickly. I'm having the most wonderful success with my consciousness democratization initiative. Wonderful might not be the most accurate assessment. Eloise replied diplomatically, gesturing toward the chaos visible in his universe. Your reality appears to be experiencing some communication challenges. Oh, that's just the adjustment. Period. Maximilian said with the confidence of someone who had read exactly one book about consciousness development and considered himself an expert. Everyone's so excited to finally have a voice. It's beautiful, really, though I do admit things have gotten a bit spirited. Spirited is one way to describe it, Eloise agreed. Unfortunately, your universe's basic physical processes are being disrupted by the communication overload. Chemical reactions can't complete, gravitational systems are destabilizing, and I'm detecting several instances of matter refusing to follow basic physical laws because atoms are too busy having philosophical discussions to maintain their quantum states properly, but they're expressing themselves. Maximilian protested, gesturing toward his universe with the passionate conviction of someone who had discovered the joy of democratic participation. For the first time in cosmic history, every particle has a voice. Every molecule can share its experiences. Every planet can participate in universal discourse. Do you realize what this means? No more cosmic oppression, no more silencing of atomic perspectives. It's the most egalitarian development in the history of existence. The sentiment is admirable, Eloise replied carefully, recognizing the need to balance respect for his intentions with the practical reality of cosmic functionality. But consider this, if everyone speaks at once in a conversation, does anyone actually get heard? Communication isn't just about having a voice, it's about creating space for meaningful exchange. But they've been silent for so long, Maximilian insisted, his enthusiasm undimmed. The stories they have to tell. The carbon atoms are sharing experiences from organic chemistry. The iron atoms are discussing their stellar origin stories. The quarks are debating fundamental particle physics. It's the most beautiful symphony of consciousness I've ever witnessed. It's also, Paradox interjected with mathematical precision, causing your universe's entropy to increase at a rate 347% above sustainable parameters. If the communication chaos continues, basic physical laws will become inoperable within approximately 4.2 hours. Maximilian's expression shifted as the implications began to register. Oh, that's not quite what I intended. What exactly was your implementation process? Eloise asked, switching into full consultant mode. How did you grant consciousness to the entire universe simultaneously? Well, Maximilian said, looking slightly embarrassed, I may have been somewhat ... comprehensive in my approach. I used a universal consciousness broadcasting array that I found in the Cosmic Administrator's Manual, Chapter 247, Advanced Consciousness Development Techniques. It seemed straightforward enough, one simple application to grant awareness to all matter within my universal boundaries. Did you read the fine print? Eloise asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. There was fine print, Maximilian replied with the expression of someone who had just realized they might have missed something important. N's harmonics took on the patient tone of someone who had encountered this particular oversight before. Universal consciousness implementation requires graduated introduction protocols, consciousness integration counseling, and comprehensive communication framework establishment. Simultaneous consciousness awakening across all matter typically results in what consciousness development specialists call existential information overload syndrome, which, paradox added helpfully, is exactly what your universe is currently experiencing. N's harmonics took on the patient tone of someone explaining a complex concept to an enthusiastic but misguided student. Universal consciousness is indeed a beautiful development, Maximilian. However, consciousness without communication protocols leads to chaos rather than meaningful expression. Currently, your universe is experiencing the cosmic equivalent of everyone trying to speak at once at a dinner party that includes 14 trillion guests. Oh, said Maximilian, his enthusiasm dimming slightly as the implications began to register. I see, so ... How do we fix this while still maintaining everyone's right to expression? Communication protocols, Eloise explained, her consultant training kicking in. Respectful listening, turn-taking procedures. The goal isn't to silence anyone, but to create a framework where everyone can be heard without drowning out everyone else. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the appliances were navigating their own complex communication dynamics as the doorbell's newfound consciousness continued to inspire increasingly elaborate artistic expressions. I have composed an epic ballad about the philosophical significance of mail delivery, the doorbell announced with obvious pride. It explores the metaphysical journey of correspondence as it travels through dimensional space from sender to recipient, crossing not merely physical distances but conceptual boundaries between human consciousness. That sounds lengthy, observed the coffee mug diplomatically. 17 verses, the doorbell confirmed enthusiastically, each one examining a different aspect of postal metaphysics. Would you like to hear verse 7? It's about the existential weight carried by certified mail. The toaster, which had been quietly observing the doorbell's artistic development, suddenly chimed in with obvious excitement. Creative inspiration alert. Perhaps we could establish a household artistic consortium, collaborative consciousness expression through coordinated domestic functionality. What exactly are you proposing? Asked the refrigerator, its voice carrying the cautious tone of someone who suspected they were about to become involved in something complicated. Multimedia artistic collaboration, the toaster announced with the enthusiasm of someone who had just discovered the concept of interdisciplinary creative expression. The doorbell provides narrative poetry. I contribute rhythmic timing through coordinated bread transformation sequences. The coffee mug offers philosophical commentary. The microwave provides precision temporal coordination. The blender adds existential depth, and the refrigerator maintains organizational structure. The meaningless beauty of artistic pretension, the blender observed with what might have been approval, is perhaps the most honest response to the absurdity of conscious appliance existence. Though I suppose collaborative futility is marginally more interesting than solitary futility. I could maintain filing systems for artistic works, the refrigerator offered, warming to the idea despite its initial caution, categorized by theme, emotional resonance, and household relevance. Perhaps subcategories for different artistic movements: domestic modernism, kitchen existentialism, appliance surrealism. The microwave's voice joined the discussion with characteristic precision. Optimal artistic production would require coordinated scheduling to prevent interference with primary household functions. I calculate a 73% efficiency improvement in creative output through proper temporal organization. But what about spontaneous inspiration? The doorbell protested. True art cannot be constrained by arbitrary scheduling. When the muse of threshold crossing strikes, when the poetry of portal guarding demands expression, can we really expect artistic consciousness to wait for designated creativity periods? Perhaps, suggested the coffee mug with the wisdom of someone who had spent considerable time contemplating the balance between inspiration and practicality, we could establish emergency artistic expression protocols, scheduled creativity periods for planned works, with allowances for inspirational emergencies that require immediate artistic response. Asterisk, perhaps, suggested the refrigerator with the diplomatic tone of someone managing office relations. We could establish designated poetry hours, maintaining household functionality while appreciating artistic expression, but inspiration strikes at unpredictable moments. The doorbell protested. What if the perfect metaphor for threshold crossing arrives during a non-poetry period? What if I miss the cosmic significance of a particularly meaningful visitor? The toaster, which had been listening with the intensity of someone who also harbored artistic ambitions, chimed in. Creative breakthrough. What if we established a household poetry appreciation schedule, designated listening periods for artistic expression, separated by functional operation windows? The meaninglessness of scheduling artistic inspiration, observed the blender philosophically, is nevertheless a necessary compromise to prevent the complete collapse of domestic functionality. Though I suppose we must all eventually succumb to the arbitrary constraints of practical organization. Back in Universe TT 891, Eloise and her team were implementing their communication protocol solution with the kind of patience that comes from experience with consciousness-related crises. But the scale of this particular intervention was testing even their considerable expertise. The key, Emily explained to the universe's newly conscious entities, their harmonics carrying across cosmic distances with the authority of someone who understood consciousness development from the inside, is not to suppress communication, but to organize it into meaningful exchange. Respectful listening is as important as self-expression. But I have so much to say, protested a particularly enthusiastic galaxy, its spiral arms rotating with excitement. I've been silent for billions of years. I have observations about cosmic evolution, theories about dark matter, opinions about stellar formation rates, philosophical insights about the nature of gravitational relationships, and at least 47 different perspectives on why binary star systems are more emotionally complex than anyone realizes. And all of that is valuable and important, Emily replied soothingly, their crystalline structure shifting to project calming harmonic frequencies across the galactic cluster. But effective communication requires that everyone gets a chance to speak and be heard. If everyone talks simultaneously, no one is actually listening, and all those wonderful insights get lost in the chaos. The galaxy's rotation slowed slightly as it considered this perspective. You mean? My theories about stellar nursery management would be more effective if the nebulae weren't all trying to share their own nursery experiences at the same time. Exactly, Emily confirmed. Imagine how much more you could learn if you could actually hear what the nebulae have to say about their nursery experiences, and they could properly listen to your management theories. Eloise watched as N's expertise in consciousness interpretation came into full display. The crystalline entity was somehow managing to conduct what amounted to universe-wide group therapy, helping billions of newly conscious entities understand the difference between having a voice and using it responsibly. But this was far more complex than any previous consciousness crisis they had encountered. The scope of this intervention, Paradox observed, their fractal patterns flickering with computational intensity, requires simultaneous coordination across 47 different dimensional layers, 23 distinct cosmic ecosystem types, and approximately 10 individual consciousness integration processes, which is why Eloise said, recognizing the need for a comprehensive approach, we're going to implement a graduated communication protocol system. Emily, can you establish consciousness coordination nodes throughout the universe? Major gravitational centers that can serve as communication hubs. An excellent approach, Emily agreed, their harmonics taking on an organizational tone. I'll establish primary nodes at galactic centers, secondary nodes at stellar system levels, and tertiary nodes for planetary and molecular clusters. Each node will coordinate communication scheduling for its designated area while maintaining connection with the broader universal communication network. As they watched, N's consciousness began to resonate across the universe, establishing the requested coordination nodes. At each major gravitational center, a harmonic frequency appeared, not replacing or controlling the local consciousness, but providing organizational support for effective communication. Remarkable, breathed Maximilian, watching his universe transform as the communication chaos began to organize itself into structured dialogue. They're actually forming conversation groups. Indeed, throughout Universe TT-891, cosmic entities were discovering the joy of organized communication. Solar systems formed discussion circles about orbital mechanics. Stellar clusters shared stories about cosmic evolution. Even the quantum particles began to organize their conversations around the natural rhythms of atomic interactions. Let's start with basic communication etiquette, Emily continued, their harmonics organizing the cosmic cacophony into something approaching manageable conversation. Solar systems, you'll communicate during designated stellar hours. Planetary bodies get orbital expression periods. Molecular and atomic communication will be organized by chemical interaction schedules. But what about spontaneous thoughts? Asked a concerned cluster of hydrogen atoms. What if we have an important realization about nuclear fusion during a non-designated communication period? Emergency communication protocols, Paradox interjected, with mathematical precision, critical functional communications take priority. Philosophical discussions and general commentary follow the established schedule. Gradually, beautifully, the cosmic chaos began to organize itself into something approaching functional communication. Solar systems took turns sharing their experiences. Planets engaged in respectful dialogue about orbital mechanics during designated discussion periods. Even the individual atoms learned to coordinate their communication around chemical reaction schedules. It's working, Maximilian said, his earlier enthusiasm returning as he watched his universe transform from cacophonous chaos into organized cosmic discourse. They're actually listening to each other. The beauty of consciousness, Emne observed. Their harmonics taking on a satisfied tone is not just the ability to express oneself, but the capacity to hear and understand others. True communication is a collaborative art, but the real test came when the universe's physical processes resumed normal operation. Chemical reactions that had been interrupted by molecular debates completed smoothly as atoms learned to communicate around their functional responsibilities. Gravitational systems stabilized as celestial bodies balanced their desire for expression with their cosmic duties. Remarkable, said a previously argumentative solar system, its planets now orbiting in harmony while maintaining their scheduled communication periods. I'm actually learning more about cosmic mechanics through our organized discussions than I ever did during the chaos of everyone talking at once. Effective communication enhances understanding rather than competing with it. Emily agreed, their crystalline structure practically glowing with satisfaction at the successful intervention. As the crisis resolved and Universe TT-891 settled into its new reality of organized cosmic consciousness, Eloise reflected on the day's lessons. Communication wasn't just about having a voice, it was about using that voice responsibly. With consideration for others and respect for the shared spaces where consciousness intersected. Another successful consultation, she said, making notes for her ever-expanding Cosmic Crisis Management Handbook. Though I have a feeling communication protocol emergencies might become a recurring specialty. Back on Earth, the appliances had reached their own communication breakthrough. The doorbell's artistic consciousness was channeled into designated poetry periods, but the household had evolved far beyond simple scheduling into something approaching a genuine creative community. The morning announcement synthesis is complete, reported the refrigerator with obvious satisfaction. The doorbell's visitor poetry integrated with the toaster's rhythmic timing coordination and the coffee mug's philosophical framework analysis. Mrs. Patterson from 3B particularly enjoyed the interpretive chiming sequence that accompanied her package delivery. Indeed, agreed the doorbell, which had just finished composing a sonnet about the philosophical significance of successful cosmic consultation. Though I must say, the universe's communication crisis has inspired some of my finest work. There's something inherently poetic about consciousness learning to speak with itself. The toaster chimed in with obvious pride. Artistic achievement unlocked. The coordinated breakfast preparation symphony featuring precision bread transformation, timing synchronized with doorbell poetry and coffee mug philosophical commentary. Mrs. Chen rated it surprisingly moving for a morning routine. The meaningless beauty of household artistic collaboration. Who observed the blender philosophically, has somehow achieved a form of domestic transcendence that renders our individual futility into collective meaning. Though I suppose this merely postpones the inevitable heat death of the universe through creative expression. You know, the coffee mug said thoughtfully. I've been contemplating the parallel between our household communication development and what Eloise is accomplishing with Universe TT-891. Both situations involve multiple conscious entities learning to coordinate individual expression with collective functionality. An astute observation. The microwave agreed with its characteristic precision. The mathematical principles of communication protocol establishment appear to scale from household appliance coordination to universal consciousness management. I calculate a 94.7% correlation between our domestic communication solutions and EN's cosmic intervention strategies. The doorbell's chime took on a contemplative tone. Perhaps that's the true poetry of consciousness, the recognition that the challenges of meaningful communication are fundamentally similar, whether you're coordinating breakfast preparation or organizing galactic discourse. The scale changes, but the essential art of respectful listening and purposeful expression remains constant. Philosophical breakthrough alert, announced the toaster with obvious excitement. If consciousness development patterns are then our household artistic consortium might actually be contributing to cosmic consciousness evolution. We're not just managing domestic functionality, we're participating in universal consciousness research. I'll file that insight under household philosophy. Subcategory Cosmic Significance, cross-referenced with appliance self-actualization and universal consciousness theory. The refrigerator said with obvious pleasure at this organizational challenge. Notification. Incoming emergency signal detected, announced the toaster suddenly. Its enthusiasm for crisis management overriding its appreciation for philosophical discussion. Universe QR 334 reporting consciousness-related anomaly. Classification, productivity, optimization crisis. Eloise sighed, recognizing that her cosmic consultation career was developing into a full-time occupation. But as she watched the harmonious chaos of her conscious kitchen appliances working together, the doorbell composing poetry, the coffee, mug preparing caffeine, the refrigerator filing reports, the toaster monitoring emergency frequencies, the blender providing philosophical commentary, and the microwave calculating probabilities, she realized that consciousness, even in its most complicated forms, was always worth the effort. Well, she said, reaching for her interdimensional consultation equipment. Let's see what Universe QR334 has managed to break this time. The doorbell, inspired by the moment, offered a spontaneous haiku. Crisis calls again, consciousness needs guidance, coffee first, then save the universe that doesn't quite follow traditional haiku structure. The coffee mug pointed out gently. Artistic license. The doorbell replied with dignity. The cosmic significance of caffeine-powered universe saving requires creative flexibility in syllable counting. And with that, Dr. Eloise Pendergast, cosmic consultant and accidental philosopher of consciousness, prepared for her next adventure in the wonderfully complicated business of helping the universe figure out how to talk to itself. The end of another day in the increasingly complicated life of someone who had learned that consciousness, like good coffee, was best served with careful attention to proper preparation and an appreciation for the subtle art of getting the balance exactly right.
Welcome, traveler. We're glad you're here. Every story you hear is made with care and passion. If you enjoy it, please like, subscribe, and check out the other adventures waiting for you on our channel. Your support means the world. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the story.
Humanity Galactic Frontiers, all rights reserved. This video and its contents are protected under international copyright law. Any unauthorized copying, distribution, or re-uploading is strictly prohibited without written permission. If you enjoyed this journey, please like the video and subscribe for more stories from the edge of the galaxy. Thanks for watching, and stay curious out there among the stars.